At this time, I'd like for everybody to stand, and Billy's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here. We appreciate the City of Bedford allowing us to use their council room. And at this time, we'll start out with some introductions. We'll start over here with Ted and have everybody introduce themselves.
I'm Ted Johnson. I'm the County Council Attorney.
Scott Finley, I'm with Baker Tilly.
I'm Paige Sansone. I'm with Baker Tilly.
Vicki Schlegel, Clerk Treasurer for the City of Mitchell.
Clerk Treasurer, City of Bedford.
Larry Arnold, County Council.
Annette Norick, Clerk Treasurer, Town of Oolitic.
This time, we'll turn it over to Baker Tilly.
All right, thank you very much. So this is the official Municipal Unit Strategic Task Force meeting. It's abbreviated M.U.S.T. This is out of recent legislative changes. So the purpose of this task force is to develop a local income tax plan for 2028. For 2029, implementation in 2029, and for the first distribution in 2030. So recent legislative changes has completely changed the structure of local income taxes, again, starting really with distributions in 2030. The purpose of this task force is to develop a recommendation. This is non-binding. These are voting members, but what they're going to vote on is a plan, a documented plan of what that local income tax might look like in the upcoming years. But it is non-binding. This is the reason for this task force is really to have a collaborative effort where it's not just the county unit making these decisions. As you can see, there's 3 municipalities up here as well. So we're going to go through some scenarios, some baseline scenarios, and then the task force will provide input. And it may take a few meetings before we come to a consensus, but the outcome of these meetings is to prepare this finalized report that we need to submit to the Department of Local Government Finance. That's a state agency. We need to submit it to DLGF no later than November the 2nd. DLGF will then forward it on to the Legislative Council. And we hope that the legislature will use the findings in these reports that they get all across the state to make informed decisions as they go into the upcoming 2027 legislative session. So we do anticipate there could be changes to the local income tax structure that they just adopted within the last 2 years. But we're hoping that as a part of this reporting, they will get the necessary input needed to make some good changes, hopefully. So really, that's what this is all about, is just developing a plan. But please know that the members of the task force, they're not establishing any rates at this point in time. This is completely non-binding. It's just a recommendation. The rates, the local income tax rates, will be officially adopted by October 1st of 2028. For implementation in 2029 and first distributions in 2030, the revenue distribution to the unit in 2030. So that's what this is about. So I'm going to turn it over now to Scott to go over our initial baseline analysis of the local income tax.
Thanks, Paige. So hopefully all of the taxing units that are present received a copy of the report. What we have in this report, like Paige said, is a baseline report that shows 3 scenarios that we think are probably the most logical to happen during those adoptions. Each one of the 3 scenarios has 2 options. We have a break-even option, and when I say break-even, that's making everyone as whole as possible. There will clearly be some winners and losers depending on how the population distribution is, but trying to make everyone as whole as possible. And then the second option is going to be the maximum rate. So that would be the absolute maximum that each of the units, each of the different lit types can adopt. So the max that any single resident can pay is 2.9%. So obviously not to exceed that 2.9%, because I think if all of the different lits are adopted, it could technically be 2.95 because there's 3 different types of non-municipal within the county. So with that, we will look at scenario 1 on page 1 of the report. It's actually like the fourth physical page. So the first scenario is going to be that Lawrence County adopts a countywide municipal lit rate that all 3 of the municipalities opt into. So Bedford, Mitchell, and Ulitic all opt into this countywide municipal rate. So if we look at just kind of the layout of this report, the first page of the kind of the summary of the potential local income tax outcomes, the first column is going to show you the taxing unit and the different types of units. The second column, 2026 certified lit, that is going to be the lit that these types of units are certified to get for 2026. The option 1 column is going to be that break-even column. Then off to the right, you'll see the illustrative lit rates that we're using for that. And then option 2 is going to be that maximum rate option. And then the last is going to be the illustrative lit rates for the maximum rates. So looking at option 1 of scenario 1, we have the break-even rates of adopting a countywide municipal lit rate. So you'll see that the current lit rate under 2026 certified for Lawrence County is 1.75. So if we look at a break-even compared to what 2026 is, we're looking at a rate of about 1.3%. And that comes out to a 1% countywide municipal lit, a 0.15% county lit, a 0.05 lit for townships, libraries, and special units. So one thing to note on the townships, libraries, and special units, I think all of the scenarios are going to be identical for those, and the break-even and the max are going to be the same because the total for each one of those units, if you adopt the max, does not quite come out to what those units are getting currently. So all of those options are going to be the same for each one of the different, for the different scenarios and the different options. So looking back up at the top at the municipalities for the countywide rate, so if the county adopts a countywide municipal rate of 1%, then Bedford would receive just over $6 million, and they're currently receiving $5.9 million. Mitchell would receive $1.7 million and is currently receiving $900,000, so that would almost double. And Ulitic would receive $499,000, almost $500,000, and is currently receiving just under $100,000. So you'll see we're calling this break even, but there are clearly some winners and losers in this because of the way the population distribution happens. We're making Bedford as whole as possible and bringing in as close to $6 million, which is what they're currently getting. But then Mitchell and Ulitic are going to either double or 5 times what they're getting now. So under this scenario, Mitchell and Ulitic are going to receive a lot more lit than they're currently receiving. Looking at the county section, so the way that the county's population makeup is in Lawrence County, the county would also get a portion of the municipal lit. So the portion of the municipal lit that the county gets in this situation is just under $5 million. So because they're getting almost $5 million from this municipal lit, it reduces the county services lit that they would need to adopt to make themselves whole. So in this scenario, we're showing 0.15%, and again, the maximum that the county can adopt is 1.2, and the county brings in $2 million under the county services lit. So that comes out to $6.874 million, and the county is currently receiving about $6.4 million. Important to note that the schools in Lawrence County are currently receiving certified lit. Under these scenarios and the way that the legislature is currently structured, there is no rate for the schools to get any of the current lit or the future lit. So some things that we're putting into the reports that we're providing to the state, some counties want to see the option to have a school rate so that they can give those schools some of this lit to replace what they're currently receiving. For the townships, again, the townships, the libraries, special districts, these are going to be the same for each option and scenario, but looking at the townships here, you'll see that the distribution comes out a little different than what it does currently. So for Bono Township, 2026, $5,292 under the 0.05% lit in 2030. You'd receiving $10,800. Guthrie, 32,000 currently, and then down to 19,000 with the new lit. Indian Creek, 30,000 currently and 40,000 under the new lit. Marion Township, 110,000 with the current lit and 130,000 with the new lit. Marshall Township, just under 60,000 and then 66,000 with the new lit. Perry, 20,000 and 33,000 in the new lit. Pleasant Run, 28, and then a slight drop to 24,000. Shoshwick, 377,000 and then down to 300,000. And then Spice Valley, 32,000 and then 32,000. So they kind of break even. Correct.
Well, under our current system of local income tax, the local income tax is distributed based on how much each unit levies in property tax. So this is a complete shift of how this is going to be distributed. The reason why you're down, maybe because your levies right now are higher than some of the other townships. But then when we go to this new system, it's going to be based on population, which is completely different. So that's why we're seeing kind of a shift where some are winners and some are losers as far as the revenue distribution.
Yeah, there's not always a direct correlation to your population and your levy. In the county where I live, there's 2 units that have a very similar population. You know, they're around 4,500 people, but their levies, one has a levy of around 4 million and one has a levy of around 1.5 million. So the current distribution of lit, the unit with 4.5 million gets a lot larger portion of the lit than the unit that only has 1.5 million. So when you switch that over to population, they're going to receive about the same in lit. So the unit that's currently got the higher levy is going to be one of the bigger losers because they've been relying on this larger portion of lit for however many years.
I don't know.
I think it's okay. You guys okay with it, or do you want to wait till the end?
Ed?
That's up to you. I mean, it's up to the board. Do you want to defer the questions and answers until afterwards, or what? It's what the task force do.
And then if I can ask a question. So in the first meeting we had, we looked at some of the townships, and the numbers you gave indicated that there would be maybe a combining of these. Would that money flow with the combination, or would it be reduced?
Yes, if there's a merger, then we fully expect that these local income tax numbers would flow with the township that gets merged. I can tell you right now that the statute doesn't specifically address that, but that's what we are assuming right now, just based on if there's a consolidation, that's typically what happens. And since it is based on population, you're basically merging population, so that all makes sense as far as the formula is concerned.
Okay, thank you.
So on the next couple of pages, we have option 1 and option 2 on the 2 different pages. So page 2 is option 1 and page 3 is option 3. Again, option 1, break-even rates. Option 2, maximum rates. This kind of has the same information, just displayed a little differently. It shows the proposed lit rates. It shows the estimated lit distribution under the future structure, the 2026 certified lit. And then this one, the difference is it shows the increase and decrease. So if you have a report in front of you, if you're looking at it, the numbers that are in red are going to be decrease to what you were receiving under the current lit structure. And if it's not highlighted in red, it means that you're receiving more than under the structure. So I won't go through those in detail, but it's very similar to what's on the other page. The other thing, sorry, I forgot to mention at the bottom of page 1, I forgot to go over the fire and EMS lit. So, oh, and the libraries. I'm sorry, I skipped over 2. For the libraries, we have the Bedford Public Library and the Mitchell Community Public Library are the 2 libraries. The total lit that they are receiving between the 2 is about $809,642 to Bedford and $167 to Mitchell. The amounts that they would be bringing in under the new structure are $495,000 and $163. A pretty significant decrease to Bedford Public Library and a small decrease to Mitchell.
And I just wanted to, and I think you already mentioned this, Scott, but I think it's worth mentioning again. So with townships and libraries, those specific units, the highest we can go under the statute for the rate is 0.05%. So we are at the max, because you're probably wondering, well, why wouldn't we just increase the rate to make these units whole? That is the max right now under the statute. Now, as we develop this plan, we can put in the plan that you would like to see a higher rate on these. There's no guarantee that anything will pass in the legislation, but I did want to make that note that we were able to go below the max on some of these. Like if you go back up to the municipality, the countywide municipal rate, the max is actually 1.2%. We were able to go to 1% if you want to break even. For the county unit, the max is 1.2%. We were able to go to 0.15%, considerably less to break even. There's no rate for the schools. Again, townships and libraries, the max is 0.05%, special units, 0.05%, and then fire and EMS is 0.4% for the max. So just to kind of give you the reasoning why there's different rates there, but we did put it to the max as far as we could.
Yes, thank you, Paige. The other thing that I'll mention on the county services lit before I drop down to the fire is that you'll notice under the max rate for the county, we're at 1.15. The reason for that is, again, as I mentioned earlier, if you adopt the max rate for all of these different units, go over the total max rate, which is 2.9%. So because of the large amount that the county would be bringing in, we took the 0.05 off of the county services and went to 1.15 for the max. So for the fire and EMS providers, these are very preliminary numbers because we still need to kind of talk to some of the units and make sure that, one, we have all the fire and EMS providers included in here, and we also want to make sure that we've got our service areas correct. We want to discuss how we're going to distribute the population in the service area, because this is the most flexible of the local income taxes under the new structure. You can split fire and EMS up based on whatever proportion you want based on population and service area. So typically what we've shown here is going to be a 50-50 between population and service area, but then you can also split the amounts up based on fire and EMS percentages. So what we have in this report here, knowing that the county has a $500,000 approximate ambulance contract that they cover. We've used 89% at 11% because that's what gives the county that $500,000 to cover that ambulance contract. Again, all of this can be adjusted. That's just kind of the baseline that we here.
I think it's also important to note that the current statute says that this fire and EMS local income tax must be distributed to fire districts, fire territories, and municipal fire departments. You do have a countywide, well, Lawrence County Fire Territory and the Bedford Fire Department. If Mitchell is considered a municipal fire department, then it would get some. But the reason why I point that out is because you'll notice that we also distributed it to volunteer fire departments in this baseline. Because at the county council's discretion, you may also distribute to volunteer fire departments. So that's something the task force will need to consider if they want to include the volunteer fire departments. If so, that's what it would look like in this under this distribution method. But I just wanted to let you know that there is a distinction there that volunteer fire departments, it is optional.
And I will, excuse me, Martha, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that part of the public safety lit does get distributed to some of those volunteers. So we do not have that in this report right now because we didn't have those distributions. So if you can send those distributions over, we can update the report with that information. So again, fire and EMS is a very unique lit in the fact that it can be adjusted a lot of different ways. That's going to be one of the lits that we're going to need to discuss in a lot further depth, once we get to that point.
I think Bedford Fire Department is the only non-volunteer fire department.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Just needs to be deemed a municipal fire department, so it could potentially be volunteer, but here's the thing. If it's an incorporated fire service company, like a 501c3 or something like that, that would be considered non-municipal. So that's kind of what we would have to look at, and we can get further into the details as we go along. Also, something to note is that most townships use their local income tax to fund their fire service contracts. So the townships will get their distribution of the non-municipal lit, but in addition, there are distributions, at least right now, we have going to the volunteer fire department. So I make that note because if the municipal task force decides to adopt the fire and EMS and do the non-municipal township lit, that some of the townships, although they're receiving less in local income tax, it could be made up in some way by the fire and EMS distribution. Now, right now, the statute seems to indicate that these distributions would go directly to the volunteer fire department. I think that could be up for changes in the legislative session because I think perhaps these fire and EMS distributions might go to the township and then to the volunteer fire department. That still needs to be worked out. But I guess when you're looking at this and you see Shoshwick, for example, getting, that's hard to say. Isn't it? I think you did a much better job, Scott, saying
Shawswick.
Shawswick.
Like a Z.
Okay, Shawswick. So again, Scott, much better than me. But Shawswick,
Got it.
whatever.
That's it.
Okay, is receiving $70,000 less. But when you look down here, I don't see it. Where is it? Are they getting? Oh, it's the 841,270. They're getting a lot more, obviously, under the fire and EMS. So I just point that out because you kind of have to look at both distributions combined when you're looking at fire and EMS. Okay, I'm going to stop talking, and Scott, better continue.
Shawswick.
Shawswick.
And Olytic.
Oh, it's Olytic, not Olytic. That one I messed up.
I knew. I heard him say Olytic. It's
Olytic.
Yes.
Okay.
That one.
We're going to get all these figured out by the end of this meeting. So I think the only thing that I haven't touched on this front page now is the special units, which we have Lawrence County Solid Waste Management. They are essentially a break even based on what they're certified is now. There's 677 under certified, and they'll get 660, so a slight decrease. So again, the next two show the break even and the maximum rates. If you look at the page 3 and look at the maximum rates, again, just notice that the county services is actually at 1.15 under this scenario. Could go up to 1.2, but you would have to take 0.05 from one of the other lit structures. So off to the right there, you can see that even under the maximum rates, there are still some units that do not make themselves whole. Primarily, we're looking at the non-municipal, the townships, libraries, and the special units are the ones that can't make themselves whole under the current structure, obviously, as well as the have any way of getting it under this structure. And
just for comparison purposes, the county currently is at a total local income tax rate of 1.75%. And so under the max rate scenario, 2.9% would be the rate. So that's just for comparison.
That is a good point because I also forgot to mention the property tax relief lit that is under the current structure, which does not get distributed as local income tax distributions, but gets distributed with your property tax. So for the 2026 certified distributions, that was $6.6 million that would be distributed under the property tax under this property tax relief credits. So we will move on. Under any of these options, there would not be any property tax relief credit.
All right, let me just take a minute to talk about that. So right now, as Scott stated, the county does have a property tax relief local income tax. That goes to fund credits for taxpayers for their property tax bills. That is going to expire at the end of 2028. There is no replacement in the statute for that. So what's going to happen is one of two things. Either if your property is not at the tax caps right now, you will pay more in property taxes. If you are at the tax caps, you may get additional tax caps, so you'll still get the credit, but it won't be in the form of local income tax. So again, that expires, it goes away, because there won't be a rate for property tax relief. But if the task force feels that that's important to keep that going, we could write it into the report, but right now there's no statutory authority to continue that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Paige, but you mentioned 2028 is when it would expire, but we still are under the impression that it would be distributed to the units in 2029.
Correct. There's just a 1-year lag time. So in 2029, all those LITs will still be distributed as they are currently, but then technically there won't be a property tax relief credit in 2030. Yes, thank you for that clarification.
So looking at, excuse me, scenario 2. Under scenario 2, we are looking at that Mitchell and Bedford opt out of the countywide municipal rate and adopt their own lit rate. Units over 3,500 population can opt to adopt their own local lit rate, which would just be applicable to the citizens within that city or town.
And we're on page 4.
Page 4, yes, sorry.
I'm reading this, right? John Brogland, Olytic. Why are we even talking about option 2? Bedford's already going in, right?
We have not discussed that, no. This is what this meeting's for, is to discuss our options. So we need to look at all the options.
Let's continue, and then we'll answer any questions at the end, okay?
So option 2 shows what, again, Mitchell and Bedford, how they would look if they adopted their own municipal lit. So this chart will look pretty similar, but we have added that city rate up at the top under municipality city rate there. So you'll see Bedford Civil City, and I didn't mention the max rate again for a municipality will be 1.2% as well. So Bedford Civil City, again, currently receiving just under $6 million in certified lit. If they adopt the maximum 1.2%, our estimate is that they would bring in about $4 million. That's about $1.9 million short of what they are currently bringing in. So Bedford, in essence, cannot make themselves whole by adopting their own municipal lit. Mitchell, however, based on our estimations, can bring in about at the max, they can bring in about $1.15 million and are currently bringing in about $931,000. So Mitchell can make themselves whole by adopting their own municipal lit. So the way that affects Olytic is that they would be the only unit that would then be under the countywide municipal. So if the county decided to adopt that countywide municipal rate at 0.2%, which is the approximate break even, they would bring in about $111,000. If they adopted at the max 1.2, they would bring in about $666,000 under that max. Now again, that does affect the amount of municipal lit that the county would then bring in under those options. So the county break even then becomes the municipal allocations from 0.2% are $1.664 to the county, which then changes the amount of county services lit that would need to be adopted to 0.45%. So that brings in a total of $7.6 million and currently bringing 3. So you can see how the different opt-in, opt-outs affect the amounts that the county receives and the rates that they would need to adopt, and therefore will change the lit rates between the different citizens wherever they might live. So the rest of the report here is going to look identical because, again, we're looking at the maximum rate of 0.05 for each of these non-municipals, not quite bringing in enough compared to what they're currently getting. Did I miss anything on that one page? Okay. On the next page, again, this is very similar to, this is page 5. This is option 1, the break even. Very similar, but we have added a couple of blue columns there. We have the residents outside of Bedford and Mitchell, Bedford residents, and Mitchell residents, because those 3 would then pay different lit rates depending on where they lived. So under this scenario, they would all 3 pay the same county services lit rate, but the residents outside of Bedford and Mitchell would pay 0.2% on their municipal county-wide lit, and then the municipal city rate for Bedford would be 1.2 and Mitchell would be 1.0. So down at the very bottom under on the totals line, you can see that the total lit rate for residents outside of Bedford and Mitchell is 0.8. The Bedford residence is 1.8 and the Mitchell residence 1.6. So I think this really illustrates how that tax rate can vary depending on where you live and depending on the rates that are adopted. Different. The next page is the same, except it's the max rates. I think the only thing that really changes on this one is that Mitchell goes up to 1.2 and the county services goes up to 1.5. And under this scenario, obviously everyone still pays 2.9 because we're going to the max for all of them. And then scenario 3, we did one more scenario that shows where Mitchell adopts their own municipal rate and Bedford and Olytic opt in to the county-wide rate. So under this scenario, again, break even, Mitchell adopts a 1% rate to bring in about $961,000. Bedford and Olytic opt in, and the county adopts a 1% countywide municipal rate. Excuse me. Bedford then brings in about 6.1 million, and Olytic brings in 608,000. So there you can see the big jump that Olytic gets when this goes from levy to population distribution. Again, the rest of this report is going to look the same as the other 2 options. And option 1, break even for if Mitchell adopts their own municipal rate. Actually, this one comes out to be the same because the countywide municipal rate is 1% and the Mitchell civil city rate is 1%. So all residents would be paying 1.2%. And the last page again just shows the maximums under that option. So that's all I have on that report. So if we want to open it to questions. Oh, sorry, I have one last page. Page 10, the very last page shows the illustrative annual taxpayer impact. We chose 2.9% as the maximum as an illustrative rate, and then we pulled 1.3% just because that's kind of an average of some of the other options in here. So you'll see if the county were to go to 2.9%, the very last line there shows the change in tax liability both annually and monthly for different adjusted gross incomes. So the first column is 40,000. The last column is 100,000, and then the approximate average AGI in Lawrence County is about 60,280. So if you look at that 60,280 column, the change in tax liability for someone making that amount for 2.9 would be about $693 annually, or $58 monthly. If the county would adopt lit rate lower than what it currently has at 1.75 down to 1.3. That would save the taxpayers about $271 annually, or $23. With that, I'm now finished with the last page. Has anything to add on that?
So I don't know if you want to, I was going to tell you what your decision points are and what are the things you need to be thinking about, and then maybe we can open it up for questions. That's up to the task force. So I think, this is a good place to start. We know we didn't get any input from you from the task force, so we just generally start with some baseline scenarios. So what you need to be thinking about are some of the following things. Like, do you want to have revenue neutrality as best as possible, which is the scenario one, where we're saying, here's the rate you need to be as revenue neutral as possible. And it also just happens to be a lower rate. Like, for example, again, you're at 1.75% now. Option one under scenario one, where all 3 municipalities opt into the municipal rate, your total rate would be 1.3%. So it does go lower. So that's one consideration you think about. Is that kind of what your goal is? Another consideration, though, is that with Senate Enrolled Act 1, we do anticipate some further property tax credits or an increase in property tax credits, which actually results in a reduction of property tax revenue to taxing units. The cities, the county, the town, the townships, libraries, et cetera. So do you want to build in a rate, meaning increase the rate to perhaps where you are now, if you can, at 1.75% to replace some of those potentially lost revenues? And we can, at the end, we're going to ask you what would you like to see at the next meeting, but we can provide an estimate of the potential revenue losses from SEA 1 for all the units within the county. We can do that. Another thing you want to think about is, do you want to include distributions to the volunteer fire departments? That is optional right now. We have included it in the scenario, and it still results in a lower tax rate if you go with the break even. So if that's something that you want to do, we can dive deeper into the contractual relationships, make sure that we have the correct volunteer fire departments. So we might even ask the volunteer fire departments to come to the next meeting. That, again, is up to the task force, just to get more information from them. How much do they need to operate, et cetera. Another thing we want to consider is the municipalities. It's going to be important to know which municipalities want to opt in or out, because as you can see, that really does change the distributions to the municipalities, the county, and the overall tax rate. Right now, you have a 1.75% local income tax rate that applies to everyone in the county, all the residents within the county. If you have 1 or 2 municipalities opt in or out, that impacts things as far as, if I live in Bedford, I might pay a different rate than everybody else. Or if I live in Mitchell, I might pay a different rate than everyone else. So it is a little bit different. Yes, there can be different rates, but that's something you want to keep in mind too. Do you want a uniform tax rate, or are you okay with having different rates in different areas? And then I think the final thing that you may want to consider is, do you want to put on a school rate? I know that the statute does not currently provide a school rate. We are working with other municipal task forces that have included that in their plan, because I think it's very important. Your schools do currently get local income tax. You have 2. They are receiving, both of them combined, almost $1 million. And I'm sure the schools need that revenue to operate. So is that something that you want to do? We can calculate what rate is needed to make them whole. It could be a small rate. I just don't know what it is sitting here right now, but that's something we can bring with us at the next meeting also, is what rate would it take to make them whole? So I think those are the big kind of decision points. It's nothing that we have to make today as far as decisions. But I guess we, Baker Tilly, will need to know kind of what information would you like for us to bring at the next session? Is there any scenarios that you can think of now or between now and the next session that you would like for us to run, so you can see that when we come back? I don't know that we have a date scheduled for the next session, so we'll want to try to do that as well. Again, but we're going to be working towards some sort of a consensus on what your recommendation or your plan might look like.
Paige, you mentioned also looking at the losses from the changes in SEA 1.
Yes.
The property tax credits, the additional credits that the taxpayers may see, which would be a revenue reduction to the municipalities. But I do think it's also important to reiterate the property tax relief rate as well. Yep. Once that falls off, that will also be a reduction in revenue to the municipalities as well, because we would expect that your property tax credits, your circuit breakers would increase and therefore leave less revenue for the municipalities as well.
That's a good point. And so if that's something you want to see, those property tax losses, we will incorporate the loss of the property tax relief in those numbers. Great. Okay.
I think that as far as all of the municipalities represented here along with the county, I think we are all opting in. Is that correct? I mean, I know Mitchell hasn't made their decision.
Correct.
And Olytic
Ours yet?
has not made theirs, but maybe prior to the next meeting. I know you meet September the 8th, isn't it?
Yes.
And same with
We meet September 10th.
10th.
I think it would be a good idea if you could discuss it with your council and kind of make that determination if you can. Remember, please note that this is non-binding. If you say you're going to opt in and by the time we get to 2028, you decide not to, it's okay. That's fine. We're just trying to put together some preliminary plan of action. But that would help us to run scenarios.
And it would be hard to make a definite decision now, because we do expect that there will be changes in the next legislative session as well. So if you decide something now, it's possible that, with changes in the next legislative session, then maybe that doesn't make sense once we get to that point.
It might also make sense that we don't have another meeting until maybe the beginning of October, just so that you all have time to talk to your council. We have time to gather the data and then come back to regroup.
I think by September 14th, that is Olytic's meeting.
Oh, okay.
So that would give us time to let you know, opt in, opt out. And if all of us opt in, then that would be the way we should go, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Olytic, I can tell you, we will opt in. We have no choice. We're less than the 3,500 population. I have a special meeting scheduled for Monday night, 6:30, with the council, where we will pass three motions, and one of those will be to opt in. So Olytic is in.
Okay, thank you.
Also, do the option with the current rate, 0.75?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
With everyone opting in?
Yes. Would you like a school rate in there?
Yeah, with one with and one without.
One with
That
and
way
one
we can
without.
see both options.
Okay. Yep. Absolutely.
And when it comes to the fire districts,
Yes.
how do you look at them? It's just kind of like right now, I know the city of Bedford, they have extrication, so they can run countywide,
Right.
but we do pay a rate to them. We contract with the county, so they pay $65,000.
So right now, the way we have this allocated, and again, this is the fire and EMS is the most complex of all of these to try to work through. But the way we've done it right now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but we are right now doing just off the top, 10% goes to EMS, was that? 11%, I was close, goes to EMS. And then the rest is getting allocated to those fire and EMS, including Bedford Fire Department, based on 50% road mileage coverage area and 50% population. We can make different changes to those allocations, like all of that. Like we don't have to give 11% to EMS, but I think they need that 11%. But the rest, we can do, if you think it makes more sense to do 60% population and 40% mileage, road mileage, we can do that. So we can do various things, but I think that's what we need to hear from Bedford is, right now we have 1.4 allocating to Bedford. If that isn't enough, then maybe we can try to, play with these allocations, because some of these fire departments, I'll be honest with you, it may be too much. Like they're receiving way more than they can even spend. I don't know. That's where we kind of need to hear maybe from. I mean, we've gathered some of the contractual payments and things, and I think that kind of covers it. If the contractual payment is covering the services for the volunteer fire departments, then maybe we just compare what those are right now to what this allocation is. And if some of them are getting double, triple, then we shift the allocation method. But we have to use a combination of road miles and population. We have to use that. So we can't just like pick and choose, like, okay, Bedford's going to get 80. We have to use some allocation method, but we can we'll take a deeper dive into that and see if we can come up with an allocation method that makes sense based on the contractual payments these volunteer fire departments are getting now, and then what it would look like under an allocation method.
And we can kind of look at once Martha sends over that worksheet that shows what you're currently distributing.
Yes, that'll be very helpful.
Okay, a couple questions on the EMS.
Yes.
The ambulance contract, would that be broken out between each, because it's countywide, would that be broken out between a certain percentage of that 500,000 and then it goes up to 550 the next year, is that correct? Would that be broken down as to, or would that be just a lump sum?
Doesn't have to be. We've based it, we just did a lump sum based on your need. But it would be easier not to break it out that way, because I think the intent was if it's a countywide EMS, then you're going to get a certain amount for EMS.
The next question is, some territories are more densely populated than others and they have less mileage. Some of them out in the far reaches of the county, they have a small population but a huge area to cover. Would that be 50-50? Would that be able to be adjusted by the departments, or does it have to go one? Yeah,
unfortunately, it has to be across the board, which again doesn't make sense. So that's something we can write into the plan. Like we would rather see a statutory change where we can adjust it. The rural departments, we do more weighting on the road mileage, for instance.
Or include something for population density versus just population.
So because this is just a recommendation, feel free to think outside the box. We can write whatever we want into the recommendation, even if it's not statutorily available. So that's a great point, and maybe we consider that. So let's give that some thought, and we'll take a stab at it first. And if we just can't make the numbers work, then we can write into the plan we'd rather have this tweak in the legislation.
Amy, did you have questions? I'm glad I did something. Do we have any questions from?
Did you?
Come on up to the podium, please. Could you state your name, please?
Central City Council. We was discussing the school, including them in. Can they be included with the group deal, or does it have to be an individual like City of Mitchell?
I would suggest that you include them as a separate local income tax grouping just on their own, because right now it's not statutorily available. So how we would do it in the plan is say, okay, we have decided as a task force that we want to create a school local income tax, and then we make up the rate as to what they need to be whole.
So we could still be in with the group.
Yeah, oh yeah, you can still be part of that municipal countywide, but that would be a separate rate.
And the rate would be determined by our Mitchell City Council, right?
No, it would be determined by the county council.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
So I want to be sure that, we weren't, if we did go with the group option, that there's still that option for schools.
Yeah, there's still the option
Okay.
for the school. Yep.
And it looks like, just based on napkin math, it would have to be about 0.1 in order to make.
So pretty minimal, 0.1%.
So it'd have to be higher than the current 0.05 for the non-municipals, because it's about 929,000 between the two. And 0.05 brings in 659. 0.1 would bring in 1.2 million.
But you kind of have some leeway there because right now you're at 1.75% and our break even was 1.3. So there's some leeway to make some changes there.
But there's nothing you can do for the library.
Well, under the current statute, the library's max is 0.05, but if we want to do more, we'll write that in that we understand that the current max is 0.05, but we think library should be at 0.1, for instance, something like that. So yes, let's do it. When you guys come up with what scenarios you would like to see, we'll just work it in. In fact, next time we can run some live scenarios. We'll bring another, baseline, so to speak, making a few of these changes, adding in the school, but then we can run some live scenarios as we're sitting here.
Any other questions?
Up our next.
I think that would be a good idea.
I would say anytime after the 8th of September. That'll give Mitchell a chance to make their decision. Mr. Brogland said that Olydic is having a special meeting and they will opt in.
Contract with Baker
Oh, okay.
Tilly.
15th. Okay. So after the 15th then, Bedford's going to be.
Okay, so Scott and I are available on September 23rd or September 24th.
September 23rd would work for Bedford.
Okay.
Okay.
Would this room be available? And what time? Like the mornings, or would you? Okay, so we can send out an official invite to everybody, but it's looking like it'll be September 23rd at 9 a.m.
Everybody good with that? Okay. I think that's all we have.
Okay, great.
And you said an hour, you're 8 minutes early.
Yep, we try to get right to the point, and next time we'll be going over some more numbers and possibly running some live scenarios.
Okay, and then if you need anything from us,
Oh, we will contact you if we need anything, yep. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you all.